We turn our attention to someone I know you're very familiar with, World's runner-up, Jamie Parke on the right, John Holroyd on the left. We've got Affinity versus Splinter Twin.
Absolutely. John leading off with a pretty nice Affinity start. He both won the die roll and has a Mox Opal for the real quick opening. He can play Signal Pest as well. And now he's looking at the turn 1 Thoughtcast. Turn 1 Signal Pest.
And then he's got a backup thought. He's got a Thoughtcast, obviously, to play on the next turn. So this is a very, very nice start. It's pretty aggressive. Allows him to attack for
4.
4 plus some infect damage if he wants to go that route, as Parke hasn't even done anything yet.
Yeah, I mean, this is the type of draw that is a for sure turn 4, with chances of a turn 3, depending on what the Thoughtcast brings us. Jamie knows he's going to be under a lot of pressure. Game 1 is also the challenging game for a twin deck. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's got a lot of tools, and Jamie's deck is actually much better set up against Affinity than a lot of twin decks, but it's still going to be rough being on the draw behind such a fast opening.
Do you feel like this matchup may be a little die roll dependent, especially for game 1?
Oh, I mean, every Affinity matchup often is, but I still like Jamie's chances quite a bit because his build is very, very well set up against Affinity. I know he plays with a lot of people and travel with people who all are playing Affinity. He's got a lot of experience against the deck, but he's got things like Lightning Bolt, Electrolyze, and a sideboard full of Ancient Grudges, Anger of the Gods, all sorts of weapons to help him here. Really what he needs to do is just try to assemble his combo as fast as possible, and hopefully by tapping something on the 3rd turn, he can buy himself that 1 extra turn to get him to turn 4 where he can combo off.
You see he's playing a Serum Vision, so he's already drawn the card and he's figuring out how he's going to scry. You mentioned all those anti-affinity cards that he has in his deck. As a result to play a card like 1 Electrolyze, 1 Flame Slash, things of that nature, he's not on the full, 4 Deceiver Exarch, 4 Pester Mites, 4 Twins, 4 Kiki-Jikis. We don't really see that version anymore. He's got 6 of the tappers, 4 Exarch and 2 Pester Mites, and then 4 Twins and 1 Kiki-Jiki.
Yep. So he's got more than like, for instance, the Tarmo Twin decks, but still not enough that you can count on it for sure.
Holroyd has drawn a very interesting card off of that Thoughtcast, and it is a copy of Spellskite. You see a New Age Springleaf Drum here. Jamie Parke taking a look, getting familiar with the new art here, but that Spellskite that he drew is actually one of the more interesting things that he could find this game. It's just a 1 of in his deck, and it's great against Twin.
Wow, that is absolutely backbreaking. That is incredible. Not only does John have the turn 4 kill, most likely, he's got a Spellskite, meaning that Jamie is in a world of hurt. I mean, obviously, it'd be nice if he could just next turn Flame Slash the Spellskite and then follow it up with a tap and then a twin. But from the looks of it, he doesn't have all those tools available to him right now. He does not have an answer to the Spellskite. He drew a twin, so he's got the combo if he can get rid of the Spellskite, but he's got so little time to even try to draw out of this.
You saw an attack here for 4, the 2 Battle Cries, of course, and the Signal Pest and the Ornithopter are going to come across. We don't even mention that Spellskite also adds to the clock.
Oh, absolutely. Well. Yeah, I mean, this is literally a 2-turn clock just showing. His attackers will attack for 8, and then 8, which alone is enough, and that's not even counting if he sends in the Nexus for a backup plan or if he draws anything. This is a legit turn 4 kill on the play by Affinity with Spellskite for interaction.
Now, this version of Affinity that John is playing, you're wondering, does he have the reach of maybe a Galvanic Blast? He does not. He's playing Thoughtcast, 2 copies of that, and then a couple copies of Master of Ethereum, but no red spells, to go firing away with here. So no reach. And obviously, Jamie doesn't know that, so it's something he has to probably be a little bit scared of. But it's just something to keep in mind here as well. He doesn't have the reach that some other Affinity decks do have, as Parke's going to play a Spellskite of his own.
Now, the Spellskite doesn't do a ton here, but it does soak up a little bit of damage. If all goes well, this Spellskite might buy him 1 extra turn, because he needs to find a answer to Spellskite ASAP.
Holroyd draws a card for his turn. You see he's looking at his board here again, those 2 Signal Pest, 2 Ornithopters, a Spellskite, which could be the backbreaker in this first game. Inkmoth Nexus, even though he looks to be on the damage plan, and he's going to send everything here sideways and resolve those 2 battle cry triggers.
Yeah. John's deck is built to be as turbo as possible. He's playing the full 4 Mox Opals, 4 Springleaf Drums, 4 Ornithopters. He even has Welding Jar for additional 0-cost action, which will make him less vulnerable to Ancient Grudge than a lot of Affinity decks.
You see Spellskite's going to get in front of the attacking Spellskite here, so we're going to get across here for 2, 4, 5, 6 points of damage. Here's a Vault Scourge that'll just be hard cast from Holroyd. And much like Affinity often is, he's just all in. Every single card that he draws comes into play, and he's hoping he's able to deal enough damage to get the job done.
Yeah, Affinity usually plays Magic a lot like Gabe Walls plays Hearthstone. Just all in, or poker for that matter. Just all in all the time.
It's just one way.
Absolutely. Shout out to the #1 Hearthstone player in the world, Gabe Walls.
Indeed, indeed.
Or soon to be.
You see Parke is drawing a copy of Scalding Tarn. Now he's going to start doing some math here. If he plays a Scalding Tarn, how much can he take? He also has a Steam Vents in his hand, and Steam Vents, as great as a card as that is, the 2 damage that he deals right now, very, very relevant.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's only barely holding on, with the ability to live through this next turn. The tough thing is, what's the long-term plan? Like, how are you going to get out of this with that Spellskite? It looks like, does he have Cryptic Command?
He does have a Cryptic. I'm not sure if that's going to be able to buy him enough time. That's the issue, where it could play Fog Mode, tap everything, draw a card. Maybe he finds a Flame Slash that way.
Yeah, because, Cryptic is potentially an answer to Spellskite. It's just so hard to ever get yourself in a spot where you can afford to bounce the Spellskite.
Yeah. Parke going to take a look at his options. They are rather slim at this point. Honestly, Holroyd's start isn't even, I guess, all that impressive. Just a bunch of Ornithopters. It doesn't have the key cards like a Steel Overseer or Arcbound Ravager or Cranial Plating, but it's more than enough since he was able to just dump everything out there.
Well, and the key, though, is drawing the 1 main deck Spellskite.
Yeah.
Talk about a fortunate draw. Can't draw it if you don't play with it, though, and a lot of Affinity players don't. So Jamie realizes the straightforward plan, as much as he wishes it would work, is not going to. He just has to set himself up to have as good a chance as possible of drawing into some kind of removal that can sort of stabilize this game.
As he does play Scalding Tarn, so you can put Jamie at a virtual 8 life here right now. See the draw there from Holroyd. Doesn't look to be of much use. It is just a copy of Welding Jar. It's actually going to kind of one-up the out of Flame Slash now. So now he has to get even more creative. It's going to have to rely on Cryptic Command, it looks like.
Yeah, I think at this point, he's realistically going to have to just try dealing with all of the creatures, which is very ambitious to think that it might even be possible, but...
And he doesn't have any, Pyroclasm or, Fire Spout or Anger of the Gods type effect in his main deck.
No, he does not.
So Parke is going to sacrifice the Scalding Tarn. He is at that 8 now. He's going to get a basic land, can't afford to get a Steam Vents and take 2 more points of damage. We're going to see some sort of tap effect. It's either going to be a Pestermite or an Exarch.
The nice thing about the Pestermite is it can not only tap one of the Signal Pests, but block the other.
Yep.
Unfortunately, the Spellskite can redirect it over, so the tap effect is mostly an illusion.
And that's exactly what's going to happen. So Spellskite's going to redirect that over. Parke tried to tap down Vault Scourge. Holroyd said, no, thank you.
Important to note that if you have a Deceiver Exarch, no, the Deceiver Exarch won't be able to block any of these creatures anyway, so.
See, Pestermite's going to jump in front of a Vault Scourge there. How do you feel in the block on Vault Scourge as opposed to Signal Pest in this situation?
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, he could go to 1, right?
Okay. He opts to block the biggest creature in Vault Scourges. That would be a 3/1 due to the 2 Battlecry triggers.
Oh no, because of the fetch land, he
Yep.
could. Yeah, he had to block this way, which means that basically, this is all she wrote. He's got Cryptic Command to tap the team one last time, but he can't keep that up for very long. In theory, next turn he could Cryptic Command again, tap the team. Next turn, Snapcaster Mage the Cryptic Command, tap the team.
Yep. Just buying himself time at that point, though.
Yeah, hopefully trying to get to a spot where he can eventually do enough in one turn to break through the Welding Jar Spellskite lock.
Parke, with a deep breath, passes the turn back over to Holroyd. Again, he does have Cryptic Command at the ready. We do know that. I think John's probably got an idea that that's what's ready as well. And here is the fantastic instant from Laurelin. So the modes will likely be tap everything and draw a card. And that's exactly what he's going to do.
Now, do you get in there with the Nexus?
He hasn't shown a pattern of getting in there with the Nexus, which is a little bit surprising because he's had some spare mana over the course of the game. I still like the idea of getting with the Nexus. I think he's going to win the game via normal damage, but it can't hurt, if you're allowed to get in some free points that way.
Does he have anything more to commit to the board?
Just a Vault Scourge.
Ensuring even more so that Jamie is not realistically going to be able to stabilize this board.
Jamie will take a draw. It's a copy of Lightning Bolt.
Fortunately, another blank with that Spellskite in play. It does mean that, in theory, Jamie might be able to sculpt some sort of a scenario where John might misplay if he forgets to Spellskite redirect, assuming Jamie has more cryptic commands. But I think without the second cryptic command here, we're going to be moving to game 2.
And he's just going to pack it in. So John Holroyd is going to win game number 1 over Jamie Parke. Affinity up a game here over Splinter Twin, as these two players are playing for both an invite to the Pro Tour and top 8 of the largest constructed Grand Prix of all time. We're going to take a look at the sideboards. You've got Jamie's in front of you. What do you like for your options?
Jamie's got a lot of great options here. Really, really great options. I mean, the best anti-affinity card there is, Ancient Grudge. It's not the highest impact like some of the cards that completely lock them out or destroy everything, but it's reliable. It comes down fast, early, and solves every problem very efficiently with more to spare. So the 2 Ancient Grudges are going to be real big. The 2 Anger of the Gods are going to be huge. In terms, just think about how much Anger of the Gods would have won that game at many, many different points.
Yep.
The Flame Slash, we're going to see Flame Slash come in order to hit Spellskite. I think we're going to see Threads of Disloyalty.
Okay.
Because he doesn't know how many Spellskites John has, but he knows that he saw one game 1,
Sure
and there's
did.
going to be more after sideboard, most likely. So Threads of Disloyalty is coming in. Engineered Explosives is going to come in. It can serve as a poor man's sweeper, but it's another Spellskite answer that also hits Plating and Steel Overseer. So lots of great options coming in for Jamie. It's even possibly gets Echoing Truth, but I think he's not going to want to dilute his deck too much more. And he's got a lot of cards he wants to take out, like Dispel or Remand, but he wants to keep his deck fast and capable of comboing.
Sounds like he's going to give himself the ability to still be able to combo quickly, but really shift to like a really good control deck in the matchup.
Well, yeah, the key is that he's going to be taking out most of his counterspells and replacing them with removal, with sweepers of sorts, because counterspells are not the way to fight Affinity, with the exception of Spell Snare, and Cryptic Command not functioning as a counterspell, but we're going to see a switch to a sweeper strategy to buy himself the time to set up his combo. What are we looking at out of John and his Affinity deck?
John had 1 main deck Spellskite. We saw that. He also has 1 in his sideboard, so you can expect that to come. In other cards here, he's got a Blood Moon, he's got a Spell Pierce, 2 copies of Dismember, Rave Revelation, 2 Torpor Orbs, 2 Thoughtseize, and then a bunch of other bullets and Illness in the Ranks, an Ancient Grudge, and a Grafdigger's Cage, a Whip Flare, and an Edge Champion. Dismember, fantastic. Breaks up the combo.
Definitely.
So you definitely want to have that joint. Same with Torpor Orb, going to stop the combo as well. It makes it so that Jamie has to have a little bit of varied answers to be able to actually be able to go off. Illness in the Ranks, the enchantment gives all token creatures, I believe, -1/-1. So Pestilmites will die when you try to go off, and Deceiver Exarch will have 0 power. And then obviously we mentioned the Spellskite. I don't think anything else is going to come in here.
I mean, this is an absolutely incredible sideboard against Twin.
Yeah.
He was expecting to lose game 1 and have to board in a lot of action, but having 2 Dismembers, first of all, having 4 more Stone Cold Killers in the form of Spellskite, Torpor Orb and Illness in the Ranks, backed up by awesome support cards like Dismember and Thoughtseize. I'm not even sure where Ray of Revelation, Spell Pierce, and his own Ancient Grudge potentially fall, but he has such an embarrassment of riches. I think the greatest risk is if he boards out too much of his action and becomes a control deck, too much so that he doesn't actually put enough pressure on Jamie, because even with all these hate cards, the long game favors Jamie.
And that was the question I was actually going to ask you, is we talk about this embarrassment of riches that John has, 6 cards, potentially up to 9, if he wants to get really heavy on the sideboarding here. What do you board out? Because you still want to be that lean, mean aggro machine, but you have the opportunity to really dilute your deck here and be too reactive, which is where Jamie wants him to be.
See, I think he's going to board out some of the random ground creatures. He's going to try to avoid getting blown out by sweepers.
Okay.
The Memnite could be blocked by Deceiver Exarch anyway. He's just going to board out a bunch of those creatures and make Jamie's sweeper plan actually much worse. I think that down a game, Jamie is a huge dog here, because this is one of the most anti-Twin sideboards I have ever seen out of a Affinity deck.
And normally from Affinity, you see a couple singletons that they can draw to potentially, and that's really it.
I mean, often they'll have like an extra Spellskite and some Thoughtseizes, or maybe 1 removal spell. But here, having Torpor Orbs and Illness in the Ranks, Dismember and Thoughtseize, Spellskite, I mean, he's got so many possible angles of attack. This is going to be a true challenge to Jamie Parke. And while he has a lot of great tools that'll that give him, that make him, I think, a small favorite in any one game. I think being down a game with Affinity being promised at least to be able to go first in Game 3, Jamie's going to have his work cut out for him if he wants to top 8 this Grand Prix.
Well, Parke is going to be on the play. He's on your right. As you mentioned, he is down a game. Both of these players, again, whoever wins this will be into the top 8 of this Grand Prix and also going to the Pro Tour in Atlanta.
Yeah, absolutely. Both these players playing for that invite. And it looks like Jamie trying to keep it interesting for everybody at home by taking a mulligan. Down a game, taking a mulligan against an opponent with 9 hate cards. Jamie is definitely no stranger to playing with style.
If we do have any updates for you guys on other matches that are taking place, again, Michael Majors versus Scott Vargas is our backup match. We also have Todd Anderson versus Jarvis Ewan. Both those players will not be playing for top 8, but whoever wins that match will be qualified for the Pro Tour. So Todd might be able to get back on. Same thing can be said for Jarvis, as we have been informed that Michael Majors is up a game over Scott Vargas. Majors, of course, playing Storm. Scott Vargas playing Malira Pod.
For those not familiar with Jamie Parke's resume, he was famous in 2 different generations. I mean, he was one of the old school players, top 8ing top 8ing a Pro Tour with Mono Red back in the Jackal Pup days.
Okay.
But then a decade later, top 8ing a Pro Tour again, coming in second at the World Championships as the first player to top 8 a Pro Tour with Cruel Ultimatum.
Who designed that deck? Was that you, maybe?
Well, I believe that was actually Nassif's take on the Cruel Control.
Okay.
For that one.
So Parke is going to start off with the Serum Visions here.
Here, Serum Visions is mostly looking for Ancient Grudge and Anger of the Gods. I don't think Jamie realizes just how absurd amount of hate John has in store for him. So Jamie's going to be thinking, I just got to make sure I can beat the early Swarm. If he's got hate cards, what can you do? The thing that's strange about John's Torpor Orbs is that he knows everybody's going to have Ancient Grudge anyway.
Yeah.
Illness in the ranks, though, I absolutely love because it dodges most of the hate that people have for his artifacts.
John's going to go unload, and he plays a Glimmervoid into a Mox, into an Ornithopter, into a Welding Jar, into a Springleaf Drum. He's going to follow that up with an Arcbound Ravager.
My goodness, is that a turn 1?
You're telling me. And
Wow.
He just says, all right, pass it back. You see Ravager will get its counter to start things off here, so he's able to unload his hand yet again. But as you mentioned, that's part of the reason he's playing, Welding Jar and all these zero-cost artifacts is because his version is very hyper-aggressive. He just wants to dump everything.
Definitely. This is a very, very all-in turbo hyper championship edition Affinity deck that is very much designed to lay it all out and put somebody in a real short clock.
And Parke understands as well that he's under the gun. And out of all the cards that John actually cast this turn, you could argue the one that's the most important is the Welding Jar.
Being able to Welding Jar the Arcbound Ravager, Jamie's so far behind because the anything he can use to destroy the Arcbound Ravager is going to effectively trade with a zero-cost card, and then the Ravager is going to grow to be so big that he can't even deal with it in the future, and with most of his cards. And if he actually does answer it, it makes something else a huge threat. Welding Jar, the best card in the format against Ancient Grudge.
You've got a Lightning Bolt in the main phase here from Parke, and that will take care of the Welding Jar. So Bolt trades with the 0-mana artifact, and now Parke is going to follow up with a Serum Visions.
What do you think about bolting here in the main phase instead of on John's upkeep or something in order to tap the Ravager and prevent 1 damage?
That's actually a really smart play that I hadn't considered there. As you mentioned, it'll actually tap and remove it, so it can't actually do anything for the turn. It's a little bit of a risk to allow him to have mana available, I suppose.
That's true.
So there's a bit of a trade-off there, and how much is that 1 damage actually worth as well? I think is something that Jamie also would have to consider there. And by doing the bolt on his turn, I think he's basically saying the 1 damage doesn't really matter that much to me. As here's a copy of Signal Pest.
Now this is a really, really, really good Anger of the Gods situation for Jamie. The Arcbound Ravager will live, but at least John will be so all in that Jamie can tap the only damage source with a Deceiver or Pextermite, and potentially Ancient Grudge to take over the game.
Looks like Flame Slash was the draw here for Jamie. He has an Exorcise in his hand as well. The big question is, does he have the 3rd land?
Yeah, I mean, and he's got 2 different ways he could go with this. If he just Flame Slashes the Arcbound Ravager, he can force John to move all in on the Ravager, or just suck it up and be willing to not have the Ravager complicating things anymore. On the other hand, Jamie can also Electrolyze making sure that the signal pest isn't going to come down, which it looks like Jamie is going to Flame Slash the Ravager.
So 4 damage is going that way towards the Beast artifact.
And it looks like he is not going to risk it. He's instead just going to power up the signal pest.
Now, to me, that feels like a win.
Yeah, for
Agreed?
Jamie, I mean, things are at least moving in the right direction. Yeah. They're still real bad, but at least he is making forward progress because he's not going to die in the next 2 turns, and the card that was messing up most of his counterplay is off the table.
Serum Vision's, of course, going to draw Parke a card. He's going to scry 2 here. And again, we'll see if he does have a 3rd land or not to play. But right now, he's got to contend for an attack next turn of it looks like at least 3 points of damage. The Ornithopters will be 1 power creatures, and the Signal Pest itself, is a 1 power creature right now.
The thing that's so compelling about Jamie's counterplay here is that if he can deal with the Signal Pest, John's offense is going to fall apart.
Yeah.
He's got a bunch of mana sources and a bunch of 0 power creatures and a removal spell in hand. I think that it's possible that John may have wanted to put the counter on an Ornithopter and possibly even sack one of his mana sources just so that he's presenting a little bit more diverse of an attack.
Blinkmoth Nexus, the draw here for John. He puts that immediately into play, as we do find out that Luis Scott Vargas has tied it up against Michael Majors in our backup match. But John is going to attack here for 3 points of damage. He's going to put Parke down to 15. And if you're Jamie going into turn 4 here, even though you missed your 3rd land, you got to be feeling at least pretty good. Sitting at 15, that's a lot.
I mean, it's definitely an improvement, but he's got a long way to go. He can engineer explosives for 0, beating both Ornithopters and a Mox, which is at least something. It's more progress, but he still doesn't have a land, and there's a lot of things John could have to potentially mess things up for Jamie. Here we are really seeing that experience we talked about with John drawing reactive cards and not having enough pressure to actually put Jamie under the gun and punish him for being mana screwed.
There's another Glimmer of Void. Looks like John's going to fire up Blinkmoth Nexus here in just a moment, and he will, and he's going to fire across here for 3 points of damage. 2 from the Nexus, 1 from the Signal Pest. It's going to put Parke down to 12. And for Jamie, you got to draw that 3rd land, and it looks like he just did with the Scalding Tarn.
Yeah, Electrolyze is going to be real big here. Electrolyze will draw him a card, help him make forward progress, and at the same time get rid of John's single biggest threat, the Signal Pest.
Now, if you're Parke in this position, Patrick, you know that John's had a card in his hand for a very long time. Now, we're thinking it maybe a reactive card, but there could be a bevy of reactive cards that he could have in his hand. So if you're Parke, what are you scared of that card? Do you just think it's something to break up Twin?
Yeah, I think that it's either a mana source or a Dismember.
Okay. Cranial Plating was the draw, so I promise you he was not holding that. And we'll see exactly how he wants to go about using this. It's likely going to go onto the Signal Pest and try to get in for a decent chunk of damage, but we know that Parke has an Electrolyze to break this up.
Now, the thing Jamie's considering is he supposed to use his Pestermite or Deceiver Exarch in order to have a chance at scare John into thinking he's going to go off next turn?
Yeah.
I think you got to just take the conservative approach and Electrolyze the Signal Pest while you got the chance right now.
Parke going to search out a mountain with the Scalding Tarn. He's going to go down to 11 to do so. You see the life total is 11 to 20. John is always going to be the aggressor in this matchup, and his life total doesn't really matter a ton. There is Electrolyze. He's going to deal 2 straight to that. So bye-bye Signal Pest. Parke will add a land to his hand, and he has got to be happy with that exchange.
Jamie is far from out of the woods, though. He's looking at a Cranial Plating, still another threat coming down. He can buy himself a few turns with Pestermites and Deceiver Exarchs, but he doesn't have a Splinter Twin yet.
There is the island that he drew off Electrolyze. That'll come into play. He's got access to triple blue in case it's Cryptic Command time as well.
And it looks like our computer says that Jamie has a 74% chance of winning this game. I assume John is looking for some of his hate. Welding Jar, that's interesting. Doesn't put any more pressure on Jamie, but it does mean that his Nexus is protected. And the big thing here is just that John is sitting on that Dismember, knowing that he's actually got a little bit of insurance.
John elected not to attack. He could have fired up Nexus and then equipped it with Plating and tried to get in for a bunch of damage, but he just said, play Welding Jar and pass the turn back here.
Interesting. I mean, he knows he's going to get Deceiver Pestermited, but...
in some fashion.
I like the Vendilion Click here. Vendilion Click is a nice creature to be able to block all these flyers, but at the same time, gives him a way to break up a Dismember without having to play a bunch of cards like Dispel.
And Dismember actually takes down from dealing click, and I think of Jamie, that's a win. And it's all about the small wins leading into obviously the very big win. You see him draw Flame Slash for the turn.
No, he drew Ancient Grudge.
He drew Ancient Grudge. Okay, excuse me.
Wow. That was, now, obviously, Ancient Grudge, not at its absolute best because of that welding jar. Jamie taking a quick little peek there. But it looks like Jamie has Snapcaster Mage and Ancient Grudge, so even though he doesn't have green mana, he does have access to Snapcaster Mage to get another Grudge out of it if times get tough.
Parke just passes the turn back over to Holroyd. So John is going to take a draw. Let's see what he's able to find. Looks like a Vault Scourge rolled off the top there.
Yeah, I think most likely Jamie's going to play some kind of a Pestermite Deceiver Exarch type, untap his own mana, and Ancient Grudge the Nexus if it was equipped with plating. Since it's not, he once again doesn't have to actually blow it. Interesting.
Parke's going to go ahead and cast Snapcaster Mage right now. Let's see how he wants to use this.
Jamie trying to establish control.
He's basically using Snapcaster Mage and Lightning Bolt to trade with Welding Jar here, making his Grudge even that much more backbreaking when it does get turned on completely with green mana. And that will tap that, so much appreciate by the judge there. As there's a Misty Rainforest, so there's your green source.
Wow, that's excellent for Jamie. I mean, it has to come into play tapped unless he's willing to get shocked, but he's not actually under that much pressure because John is stuck in the classic Affinity situation of only being able to present one big attacker each turn.
So Jamie feels as though he can finally start attacking, so he's going to come across for 2 here with Snapcaster Mage.
It's very unlikely that this is going to end up mattering at all, but Jamie knows there's no possible way that Snapcaster Mage is blocking.
Yep.
Not this turn, anyway.
And Parke's just going to pass the turn back. So John will untap. Again, he's cardless. He's playing off the top. That's a copy of Springleaf Drum. And this is one of the things that is a little bit frustrating with Affinity, I suppose, for lack of a better term of, you know, he has this insanely fast start, as we saw, with a turn 1 Arcbound Ravager, but you've got a lot of bad draws in the middle and late game, like a Springleaf Drum, like additional Mox Opals. Your high-impact cards are obviously great, like Platings and Ravagers, but your low-impact cards in the mid to late game are very low impact.
Yeah, I mean, Affinity is an extremely high-variance deck when it comes to drawing off the top. You've got so many cards that are just home runs and so many strikeouts, largely because you're so synergistic. You know, when you have a card that lines up right with the rest of your cards, it's often game-winning, but as we see here, Jamie's got an answer to everything.
It's time to equip Vault Scourge.
Now, if you're Jamie, do you just Ancient Grudge the plating, take the 1, and save the Grudge for a rainy day?
That's what I would want to do personally. I think the only card that actually matters in play right now for John is Cranial Plating. Now,
the alternative, he can just Pestermite or Deceiver Exarch the Vault Scourge and save the decision for later.
Yeah. Looks like he may have over-tapped here. I guess we're trying to figure out exactly what's going to happen. Looks like we're in combat. So you see the judge is going to rewind some things. If we can find out exactly what the ruling is.
I think he just hit undo, like Alt, what is it, Alt U?
It's Alt U on Magic.
Yeah, I think he hit Alt U.
Not too familiar with the program? I know you don't play it a ton.
I mean, I was going to learn a lot this weekend, but it crashed. So I guess maybe next weekend. All right, we have a Pestermite coming down.
Looks like Jamie might be going on tapping his own stuff. So he's going to tap his own island. Looks like he's happy with the trade here.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's got the Deceiver still in his hand.
So now he's going to use the instant speed ability on Cranial Plating to suit up here.
Now, at this point, you use the Grudge to prevent the damage. Figure why not?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a strange equip. He's going to kill the plating. Now, Pestermite's they're still going to trade.
Definitely. Yeah. I think John just wanted to gain some extra life because he wasn't doing anything else with the mana.
Okay.
Computer has Jamie at a 91%. I would have thought it's a little higher, but 91% to win this game.
So things get real nasty here now because Parke can flashback Ancient Grudge on the Springleaf Drum during his turn, and then Holroyd doesn't control any artifacts, and so he'll lose the Glimmer Voids.
That's huge.
Now, I don't know if Parke wants to take that route, and he's going to actually take a look at Glimmer Void.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to do this. We're going to do the exact same thing. We'll take a look at Glimmer Void because it checks at the end of each turn.
Yep.
If you don't have any artifacts in play, that's going to go bye-bye. So Parke is going to make that line of play. He says, get your Springleaf Drum out of here. And John says, that's good enough for me. He's out of here.
Packs it in.
Yeah.
We move to game 3. Jamie, a pretty incredible comeback. Facing down the old turn 1 Ravager with Welding Jar. Misses his third land drop. Still climbs out of that one to even the score at 1-1.
So what do we think happened that game? John with a fantastic start. Jamie kind of fumbled and stumbled around a little bit. Was there maybe a little bit of mismanagement of Ravager? Should he maybe have gotten a little more aggressive with it? Was there anything John could do? Because he kind of, didn't really draw anything in the mid game.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, the way the game played out, it would have been real strong to go all in on the Ravager, but that's such a risky play. I don't know if that's realistic to actually do there. What I think he could have done is he could have sacked 1, maybe 2 of his artifact mana, powered the Ravager up a little bit more, then moved the counters to the Ornithopter, meaning that Jamie has 1 more big threat to deal with, or just put more counters on the Signal Pest. Okay. Now, as it played out, Jamie had Engineer Explosives, which would have shut down the Ornithopter line. True. But I think that John stumbling a little bit. I mean, first he drew his Reactive Dismember, which really didn't do a lot for him this game. But then second, he drew a little too much mana, and Jamie drew a timely Ancient Grudge. I mean, drawing Lightning Bolts, Ancient Grudges. We talked about how incredible Jamie's deck is set up against Affinity. Both of these players have very strong builds against each other. John's build much better against Twin than most Affinity. I think Jamie, even though I think in any one game he has the edge, he was a dog coming into this game because of being down a game. However, we go to a game 3 where Affinity is on the play. Big advantage, but Jamie, a very seasoned veteran with a lot of experience in this matchup and a list tuned for it, I think that this is real close to 50-50. The play versus a slight edge in deck strength.
You saw John there, and you see him right now on camera. A couple of deep breaths, maybe a little bit of nervousness here. Think about it. I've been playing all weekend long. 13-2. That gets me to the Pro Tour. I got 1 game. If I don't win this match, I don't top 8 this tournament. I don't qualify for the Pro Tour. It's 1 game for it all. Same thing on Jamie's side. Emotion's probably running high right now.
Oh, absolutely. But they've both come too far for it to end like this.
Yeah.
Not like this. Not like this.
And it looks like John maybe knocked a card off the top of his deck, not entirely sure exactly, so the judge is going to figure out exactly what's going on. But, for yourself, if you're in this situation, does your body react a certain way? Do you think a certain thing? You try not to get too far ahead of yourself, I'm sure. But, you just lost a game. You're like, I won game 1. All I got to do is get 1 more.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely the type of situation where my mind is saying no, but my body is saying yes.
Sure.
To winning this match, moving on. And you can tell John's a little shook up. I think he was already counting his invite, doing his victory lap. The start he had, that game 1 that game 2 looked so good, and yet Jamie managed to crawl out of it. I think if you're Jamie though, you're feeling pretty good. You're kind of on a free roll anyway. It looked like you were doomed when you missed your 3rd land drop. Mm-hmm. But right now, he's living life and living large.
These are my favorite parts of Magic, man, when it's all on the line. You got 1 game to play. There's a bunch of people in this round who are X and 2. There are going to be half of these people are going to be very frustrated at the end. Half of these people are going to be absolutely ecstatic that they're qualifying for Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, and besides, you can't ask for it to be any other way. There's nothing more, there's no more clean living than Arcbound Ravagers versus Splinter Twins. Yeah. That's just good, honest Magic, the way that Garfield intended.
We've got a nice start here from John yet again. A Darksteel Citadel, a Mox Opal, a Signal Pest, and a Vault Scourge. So already he's going to start being able to get in, and his affinity count is very high.
Absolutely. I mean, this is one of the advantages to playing with 13 Mox Opals in your deck.
Basically. That's what Darksteel Citadel, Springleaf Drum, that's what they kind of function as.
All right, Jamie, once again looking at a ridiculously fast opening. The question is, does John have one of his heavy hitters? Does he have a Ravager or a Plating or a Master of Ethereum, something that can turn this reasonably fast start into a degenerate draw?
Mox Opal looks like it's tapping for mana and it's going to replace itself in just a moment here.
Yeah, we talked about that. 13 Mox Opals in John's deck.
Yeah, he's found 2 of them.
That's one of the prices you pay sometimes.
So 1, 2, and 3. It looks like Edged Champion is going to show up, and that's exactly what's here, along with an Ornithopter. So he doesn't have one of the powerhouses, but Edged Champion actually does play a pretty important role in this matchup because Metalcraft makes it so that it doesn't die to things like Electrolyze, Anger of the Gods, Ancient Grudge, any of that stuff.
Yeah, what's important about the Etch champion is that he gives him a little bit of resiliency. You can't grudge it very easily. You can't anger the gods it very easily. This gives him a little bit of resiliency, so that while he has Jamie on a 3-turn clock, even if Jamie fights back, it is possible that Jamie will get stuck, unable to stop the Etch champion for the final few points of damage.
If you can see in Parke's hand, he does have a copy of Splinter's Wind. It looks like it may be multiple copies. Not sure if he has a Pestermite or Deceiver Exarch just yet. The big question here is, will turn 4 comboing be fast enough? Because he is obviously already underneath the gun, and he just has to play Misty Rainforest and pass the turn back, as Holroyd will draw a card for his turn.
Yeah, I think the single biggest thing Jamie needs to do is deal with that Signal Pest if at all possible.
Well, Welding Jar is going to make that difficult now.
Wow. If Jamie doesn't have a response here, and he doesn't, Jamie's going to be much further behind than he was hoping to be here.
This is an attack for 6.
Number 17, your event is ready to fire. Please report to the information.
So this attack for 6, assuming Jamie does nothing, is going to put him down at 12. As we are being told very quickly here, Luis Scott Vargas does win his match over Michael Majors. It will not put Luis into the top 8, but it gives him an X2 finish, more pro points, things of that nature.
He's got chances.
I mean, he's in 14th place. I would be very surprised if he can jump all the way up to 8th. It's not impossible, simply improbable.
Oh, I think that most likely Luis is looking at like an 11th place finish.
Yep.
But he is very live. He's only he's actually only 2 percentage points out of. He's only 2 percentage points out, 2 1/3 percentage points out. It's very unlikely, but it is very much in the realm of possibility.
We've got a judge call here very quickly, so we'll figure out what's going on here in just a moment. But for Luis, obviously a great tournament for him, going X2 with Lirapod this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And Luis making day 2 of a Grand Prix. Definitely, it is a real good tournament for him. Besting somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,293, 94 opponents.
Other magicians, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not so bad for the Hall of Famer. Michael Majors, don't want to sell him short. He had a great tournament with Storm.
Definitely.
He really did.
And it's interesting, there aren't actually that many Storm decks up at the top.
Yeah.
Michael Majors, one of the best performers with Storm. An awful lot of people hating out the Storm archetype this weekend. And I mean, we'll see what it looks like at the end, but so far it has appeared that Storm has not been able to weather the hate enough. I mean, it performed okay, but it's not dominating the way that it did 2 weeks ago, now that people are playing the amount of Rule of Laws and Graveyard Hate they should be.
So we'll see exactly what the question here is as the judges back to the table. We'll see. Maybe a trigger was missed, maybe something with Battle Cry. We'll find out exactly what is occurring. We'll let you guys know at home in just a moment. All right, we're bringing it back to us. So
without knowing the ruling, it's looking like 75% for Affinity.
75 is
75%.
That's your percentage?
According to our little
in the corner.
The overlay isn't on there yet, but
okay.
75% for Affinity. See, Jamie's been against much longer odds before, but that's still a real tough spot to be in against an Affinity deck.
So for Jamie, he's obviously underneath the gun right now. A card like Anger of the Gods can turn it around, I believe. Maybe Ancient Grudge will also be able to get the job done. I think for John's side of things, he just needs to draw another action card because Etch Champion and Signal Pest are playing the role of action cards right now with Welding Jar kind of protecting him. But those aren't the heavy hitters from Affinity.
Yeah, I think actually, I mean, it's possible that what he really wants is a disruptive card, because it might just be that Jamie doesn't have time to take over this game, and Jamie is going to have to just go for the Pestermite, Splinter Twin, it's over. Yep. Or Deceiver Exarch, Splinter Twin, it's over.
And then all it takes is one reactive card, one Dismember, one Illness in the Ring, something like that.
One Torpor Orb, one Dismember, one Illness in the Ranks, one Thoughtseize, one anything.
Okay. Well, we are going to have a head judge come in to make a call now. So
yeah, it looks like It looks like one of the players. It looks like the Affinity player, John, forgot to gain life from his Vault Scourge, which is his 3rd violation for missing triggers, and that is potentially game loss material.
We're walking into game loss territory here, so we will find out exactly what's going to happen there. I don't know if we have another backup match to go to or not.
This is the epitome of not like this.
Yeah.
Not like this.
I would say so.
Not like this.
Yeah. Especially with all this riding on the line, would hate to see it go that way. Now, let's actually talk about that for a brief moment here. About triggers and how they build up over the course of the tournament. I know a lot of people, they don't like to call judges for something that seems so minor like that, but there is the ability to abuse something of that nature, correct?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And in this spot, I mean, it's not even Jamie who's saying anything about the missed triggers on John's part, and nobody's accusing John of having missed these for some deliberate advantage. But at the same time, there's a certain threshold in a premier level event that you have to play at. There's a point at which sloppy play is no longer tolerated, where you have to be able to, you have to do what your cards say.
Okay.
If you're going to play at a professional level event.
So, have you ever felt, I guess a lot of players, when they're coming in a competitive match or something, they feel kind of bad about calling a judge in this situation. I'm not saying Jamie called a judge and say, hey, he missed his Vault Scourge again, but, that's something that kind of happens where, you missed the damage on a fetch land. And then you guys kind of back and kind of correct it a little bit later. And it's like, well, don't worry about it. I won't call a judge, something like that. But, players kind of have this propensity, I feel like, of just a little bit of fear. I don't want to be a jerk to my opponent. But, I don't think that they're really being a jerk about that. It's just trying to maintain a proper game state when you're playing a competitive tournament.
I know that one of the last tournaments, back before they changed the rules about missed triggers,
okay,
there was I think it was the M12. There's a Grand Prix of M12. Maybe it was M11, but my opponent had or M10 even. My opponent had a creature that lets him gain a life every time a creature comes into play.
A Soul Warden effect.
Right,
okay.
And he missed 10 or 12 triggers.
Okay.
And this is before you couldn't let your opponent miss the triggers.
Okay.
So I had to keep pointing it out, but I didn't call a judge because I'm like, I don't want, I don't. And it ended up costing me the match, and where it ended up costing me a reasonably big finish at the Grand Prix because I didn't call on these triggers. And I don't know. It depends. If you're still hungry, you gotta hold people to a strict standard, because people are going to hold you to a strict standard.
Yep.
And honestly, I mean, you can't know that this is going to be the time where they miss 10 times.
Sure.
I figured, he missed. I don't want to be a jerk. It's not that big of a deal. But the 10th time, in each time you think this is going to be the last time.
Sure. You kind of reminded me to say, all right, you're at 19 now. All right, you're at 20 now. So.
And if you recall, at the beginning of this game, John actually accidentally flipped up a card.
Yep.
I mean, he's just accumulating warnings left and right. It's been a long weekend. It's been really, obviously very grueling. Huge amount of pressure. We saw he's a little frazzled after that last game. And even a slow play warning for shuffling too long.
Sure.
So we're going to find out what the head judge wants to do about this situation. It would definitely be an unfortunate end to the tournament for John, but the rules are the rules.
I think for John, he needs to take one of these. He needs to take a deep one. He doesn't have to do the hand motioning thing. If he wants to, he can. I'm not sure how much this helps going up and down and all around, but I think a deep breath might be in order.
Wax on.
Yep. Wax off. It might be in order for right now. It is a very pressure moment for him right now, so I can understand. It's very obvious he's visibly nervous right now. I'm sure he wants it really, really bad. Yep.
Well, it looks like it's been decided.
Yeah.
So Jamie Parke wins 2-1 after John receives a game loss for excessive warnings.
That is a very obviously difficult way to go out, especially when we're covering the match and we want to bring you the best that we can. Obviously we have a nervous player in there playing for potentially top 8 of his first Pro Tour, top 8 of his Grand Prix, and an invite to his first Pro Tour. But there were obviously something that compounded, and it sounds like not just this match.
Yeah, and
prior things that have happened over the course of maybe just today, over the course of the tournament.
Yeah, over the course of today, my understanding, and honestly, I think this is going to give him a lot to learn from, a lot to grow from. It's going to be real, obviously, hard. You'd be kind of sour or bitter right now, but John's a wise guy. He's got a mature view, and he's going to see how he can get better from this, how he can improve and use